just do the same video. We'll take a little bit of a pause.
Okay.
And then start, and then I'll just cut up the audio and make it 2 parts.
All right.
So here we go. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is about to go down. It is week 13 preview, part 1 here on the Audible. It's the footballguys.com podcast. Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom. And week 12 just ended, Bloom.
Right.
And scheduling errors and problems that caused us to delay our usual Wednesday show to now both doing them on Thursday. So buckle up, keep your energy up. Forgot to tell you that off the air. Because if we sound bored, the listener will get bored. See, these are the secrets. These are the keys. And also having fun. These are the keys to having a great show. So let's have a great show and talk about what hopefully will be a full week. We've got 2 teams on bye in week 13 in Tampa Bay and Carolina. But we've got New Orleans and Atlanta again. Bloom, I feel like we just watched this game because we did with Taysom Hill. Fantasy GMs are going, Alvin Kamara is like a flex play this week. And Latavius Murray is a better play than Alvin Kamara. Okay, you're not too far off in that. And if Taysom Hill's out there, you saw against the Broncos and against the Falcons, he was more successful passing. Once Sean Payton learned the Broncos didn't have a quarterback, which is disgusting and stupid and humiliating for the Broncos and the NFL, Payton changed the entire game plan. However, when you did see Taysom think about passing, it was rough. It was really rough in terms of him trying to complete a pass. So what does that mean for Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders? They never used Jared Cook anyway, Bloom. So the Saints team, Saints Falcons again. Here we go again, Bloom. But yeah, here we go again. What does that mean this week?
Great rivalry here, and I think that New Orleans embarrassed Taysom Hill. Maybe I was premature saying the Taysom Hill haters took an L whenever he looked at least functional, adequate as a passer against Atlanta 2 weeks ago. He gets Atlanta again. And see, this is the perfect empirical, scientific test of this, right? Because if it's really that, once you get to see Taysom Hill, you can figure him out, and it should be easy to stop him. Well, the Falcons just saw him 2 weeks ago. So if there's something that, next time, we won't let him do this, and then you'll see how limited he is. Let's see. And their pass rush just had a really good game against the Raiders, made Derek Carr look very bad. So we'll see what happens with the flow of this game. And like you said, how Taysom Hill, if he's not able to be a good passer, how that affects the outcome. And, New Orleans in a tight playoff bracket here. Also, so we have 2 weeks of sample with Taysom Hill. By the way, as an aside, he's quarterback 6, 7, depending on your scoring system, as a fantasy starting quarterback, which is at least partially because a lot of fantasy quarterback scoring has dropped off. Kyler Murray's dropped off. Russell Wilson's dropped off. Josh Allen has dropped off. Taysom Hill's actually someone you're considering. If you don't have Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes, and a few others, the automatic plays at this point, you're considering Taysom Hill, and you're looking at this offense that has really been favoring Latavius Murray and his downhill quick-hitting style. Also coincides with Alvin Kamara and his foot injury. Also coincides with Taysom Hill not passing to Kamara, barely at all, almost to Murray as much as Kamara. So I think both New Orleans running backs are plays here, but don't be surprised. At some point, we can't ignore the trend of Murray being more valuable or productive than, or used at least as much as, Kamara. And then you have Michael Thomas. He had a pretty good game 2 weeks ago. It is the weakness of the Falcons' defense, the coverage, even though the Raiders didn't do much against it. And then on the other side, Cease, I think there's a sort of a national moment happening this week with maybe Raheem Morris should be, whatever. He lost a game or 2, but maybe he should be the head coach. And now that is the storyline, I think, for the rest of the year for the Falcons.
Yeah, for the Falcons, and then moving forward, how long are they going to keep that Matt Ryan project going? But Matt Ryan project is here. Fantasy GMs are worried about Todd Gurley. They're concerned. I'm getting some Ito Smith questions out there on the waiver wire, Bloom. Okay, that's fine. Is Julio going to play? Our guy Chris here saying, I just hope Julio plays the shootout. Me too, Chris. Me too. So, all right. If he does or doesn't, what's that mean for the rest of the Falcons wide receiver core, including guys like Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage? And is Hayden Hurst going to be a little sneaky play at tight end?
Like I said, a rivalry game. So first game around, the Saints defense really put the clamps on the Falcons, really made Matt Ryan look bad, showed where Matt Ryan's game is really empty against pressure. But that was without Julio Jones. And we know that Julio's the straw that stirs the drink in this offense. I think Julio's going to play. Now, is he going to play well? Is he going to play the whole game? That's yet to be seen. I think Gurley's going to play. We're not going around the Falcons running game anyway, although you brought up Ito Smith. I think if Gurley misses more time, Ito's the guy, not Brian Hill, that we would be looking at. And with Julio, we did see last week Hayden Hurst finally have a pretty good game without Julio out there. So you're looking at Hurst, at least considering him if you haven't found your answer, at tight end. And, we'll see what Matt Ryan can do against New Orleans. Cecil, just got this T-shirt. Kate loved it. It was, remember last week on Thanksgiving, Shy Tuttle and the stiff arm on Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
and said I said 6 feet. So that's what typifies this series lately is the Saints really getting after Matt Ryan and sometimes literally just knocking him to the ground with complete dismissal. So Matt Ryan, and like you said, also. Maybe this is, we're starting to think about, we got Julio against Marshawn Lattimore. Like, how many more times are we going to see that in the context of this great rivalry? Matt Ryan, a year or two, he'll probably be quarterbacking elsewhere. How graceful will his next stop be? A lot of those things on our mind. But when these two teams play, I think, like that Steelers-Ravens mentality, they're going to leave it all on the field.
They leave it all out there. And then there's Detroit and Chicago. I don't know. Watch out when you're drinking. Yeah. Okay, so Detroit and Chicago. This is interesting, I guess, because no Matt Patricia. Okay, so right. Is there some sort of dead cat bounce that the Lions, ironic that I would use dead cat bounce there, but like, when the Lions kind of bounce back, is DeAndre Swift going to be out there? That's the main thing. It looks like Kenny Golladay is just not going to get back from that hip. Certainly not this week. Haven't announced him out yet, at least. Well, hell, I just woke up. So like so far this week, he didn't practice yesterday though. So like how much more time is he going to miss? So Marvin Jones Jr. becomes more of an option. Maybe it's more TJ Hawkinson. Matthew Stafford could ball. And by the way, Lions fans enjoying while you can before a team like the Broncos trades for Matthew Stafford. But let's look at this Lions team. It's interesting because, ding dong, the pencil witch is dead.
Right.
Matt Patricia's gone. How does Detroit react?
That's exactly what I had at the top of my notes. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Because Patricia was, much like Bill O'Brien, I think, not liked in the building. Not a player's coach. The Belichick tree, not a player's coach. And now it's the week after. Another, turning to the page, change, but it's the same as it ever was. And they get to play a Chicago team, which might be on the verge of turning the page. So you're right to go into this matchup thinking the divisional battle rivalry. No, it's two teams that are really at lows right now in the arc of their franchise. But from a fantasy perspective, you do have a Chicago defense that is showing more cracks. You're probably not going with Matthew Stafford with Kenny Golladay out there, but we can trust TJ Hawkinson. And assuming DeAndre Swift's going to be back, and he was not that close, but kind of close to playing on Thanksgiving, I think he'll be back. We're going to keep going with him. You're seeing a Chicago defense that had been, and Khalil Mack, I think his back issue may be affecting him. It just isn't the Bears defense that put its stamp on games the way we'd seen in recent years, or even a little earlier this year. So we're not really fearing them or steering clear of them. But at the same time, partially that's because I do think you're going to see Detroit play with a little more spring in their step, and their mood in the building should change, at least temporarily. Where Chicago, they haven't had that moment yet. Cease, they're still stuck in their nightmare.
Still stuck in the nightmare because it's Mitchell Trubisky out there, but he did look better last week. Nick Foles has resumed practicing, but they've already announced Trubisky as the starter. Fantasy GMs are like, is David Montgomery actually going to be like a top 12 running back this week? Yeah, maybe. Low end RB1, high end RB2. Okay, let's look at that. Of course, look to the wide receiver core, and there's one guy, and that's about it. The Bears side is pretty simple, Bloom, and very frustrating as well.
Yeah, Trubisky, more Trubisky. And then it just shows you where the Bears got to as a franchise, or shows you maybe where Nick Foles is. That when Trubisky comes back in, there's almost a sigh of relief. And even though it was mostly when the game was out of hand, Trubisky did make the offense look a little more viable than Nick Foles did. Certainly, David Montgomery is the big question here, right? Because we saw it earlier this year against the Giants, where he started to look like the guy that the most optimistic, or maybe any optimistic view of Montgomery in the pros had envisioned. Running with some urgency, getting downhill quickly, maybe not the most overwhelming burst, but enough burst, especially with the way the toughness he runs the ball, to break some long runs. Certainly a very functional player in the passing game, and able to be a steady part to move the chain, otherwise give quarterback a good target whenever he's under pressure. And he looked like that again last week. But was that just the Packers and their terrible run defense? So Detroit has been kind of a zombie on defense. We'll see if they snap out of it with Patricia getting fired. But remember, they just put Danny Shelton on IR. They just put Desmond Trufant on IR. We do like Allen Robinson, what he's doing with Trubisky. Still looking for that Darnell Mooney deep ball. Jimmy Graham, I guess, is throwing a dart in this one because it is against the Lions, whose defense was so terrible the last few weeks. And hey, the Bears are still technically alive in the playoff picture. So you beat the Lions, you get to live for another week.
Well, playoff picture abounds in our next game. It's Cleveland and Tennessee, dude. This one is an important one. And, thinking about the Steelers' schedule, I'm like, watch the Browns knock them off in week 17.
Yeah.
It would seem fitting. But the Browns and Tennessee up next. This is a playoff preview, to be sure. Tennessee side we'll get to in a little bit because it's fairly simple. It's not like the Brown side is that complicated either, Bloom. These two teams should mirror each other because you have Nick Chubb. So feed Nick Chubb. Use Kareem Hunt as a, flex option for fantasy GMs this week. Jarvis Landry. Wow, fantasy GMs are like, give me a piece of that. Do that again, please. The tight ends are always a little confusing with the Browns. So this one should be a slugfest. It's Mike Vrabel, right? So Baker could be frustrated, could be pissed off, but as long as you're handing off to Nick Chubb, your day can end up well.
Yeah, the Spider-Man meme, right?
Yes.
Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. And also how this game could go. See, when I was looking at this game, I was thinking it in terms of, okay, Cleveland, as long as you don't puke all over yourself, you're probably going to go to the playoffs this year. So you want to be running with the big dogs. Well, we've seen this year the Steelers and the Ravens humbled, to say the least, the Browns. They beat the Colts. I don't think they have a signature win this year. So this is a game where we really see where they're going to measure up against a playoff team, because the Titans have that heart of a champion where even whenever they have injuries and things that could allow them to make excuses, they still show up, and they've played a lot of good teams, very tough. Is Cleveland a good team? I mean, I suppose we may find that out to some extent. Are they good offense? Without Odell Beckham, like you said, Jarvis Landry really found his game last week, and Baker Mayfield's efficient enough with this running game establishing that advantage that you want to put Landry in, especially if you do think that Cleveland might fall behind and have to pass more than they want to. Austin Hooper caught a touchdown last week. He's potentially a what-the-heck tight end here. Trey Burton did a few things against Tennessee last week. But it's mostly going to be Chubb and Hunt, and maybe even a little more Hunt. Again, if in your mind's eye you think, yeah, Cleveland's going to get humbled again, then it could be a Hunt game, especially in the second half if they're playing from behind. A test for Baker Mayfield too. But I do think, Cecil, where we're looking at Stafford and Ryan and Detroit and Atlanta and thinking, like, what's next at quarterback? We wondered about Cleveland. And Mayfield, I think, has done enough to establish that, see how he can grow with this offense, the Kirk Cousins here. And Cleveland's going to get Myles Garrett back. We'll see about Denzel Ward. So maybe this is a game where we see that Cleveland is a real threat to erase that zero from the L column for the Steelers.
Yeah, Tennessee side, again, very simple. Derrick Henry, ladies and gentlemen. But there's enough for Corey Davis and A.J. Brown. And hell, Ryan Tannehill might get a rushing touchdown in here. So if you've got him as a desperation quarterback play, I know I've gotten some like Tannehill golf questions, Bloom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Tannehill, get that rush yards, get that rushing touchdown maybe. And of course, distributing to Corey Davis and A.J. Brown always helps as well. Watching the health status of one Jonnu Smith and then probably not starting him. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. For fans, I mean, Smith, the payoff was there earlier in the year, not so much lately. Even if he's active, we're staying away. And we're staying away from Anthony Ferkser or Jeff Swaim. We're going towards A.J. Brown. And Corey Davis is still a safe wide receiver 3 flex type. Ryan Tannehill's playing well. The only worry is a low volume game, but Cleveland should be effective enough as a running team to keep within shouting distance of Tennessee in any event. Although you wonder, because Indy scored on both of their first 2 drives, and it was still 35-14 by halftime. So Cleveland could be looking at something like that too. But if it's 35-14 by halftime and you're happy you played Corey Davis, it was like 3 for 70 last week. That's a floor game only because of volume. Similarly with Ryan Tannehill, like you said, though, he got that easy rushing touchdown. So you expect him to have some success here. But it's all about Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown to an extent, because A.J. Brown's making like a play a game now. When we're just saying, like his former teammate DK Metcalf, we're just, patting our brows, watching what A.J. Brown can do, watching what Tennessee can do, and a team that's had some turbulence. Before there was the Ravens outbreak, there was the Titans outbreak. This team has been through a lot already this year. They've been through some really tough games, and it's always found a way to summon up their best performance. So, yeah, this is a real test for Cleveland, and for Tennessee, you're just trying to bring home the division here after that win against Indy.
Teams take on the personality of their head coach or their quarterback, and sometimes both. Mm-hmm. The Bengals, well, Brandon Allen doesn't have personality. He has perseverance. I'll give him that. I mean, his car got burnt to the ground when he was down there at Arkansas. So, okay, Brandon Allen leading the Bengals. That doesn't make me want to start any of the Bengals, Bloom, against Miami. Miami side's more interesting. Yeah. The Bengals side is like, okay, maybe T. Higgins as a what the heck flex, maybe, because there was some chemistry there. Yeah. I just don't like the Bengals. I don't like Gio. I don't like anybody in the receiving game. Even though I like them, I don't like starting them with Brandon Allen.
Yeah, this one is really just bring it home. Don't get anybody hurt, Bengals. Season's over. And from a fantasy perspective, I'll put it this way, Cease. Xavier Howard is as likely to catch a touchdown pass from Brandon Allen as T. Higgins.
Yes.
So, I just think you're staying away here. We're certainly staying away against any even mediocre defense. Miami at times has looked a lot more than a mediocre defense, especially against a bad quarterback and a bad offense. So it should be Miami, another team, marching to the playoffs.
Marching along, but is it Tua this week? He's our starter if he's healthy, but he's hurt. Okay, so is Tua their starter this week? Is he back? We're watching the running back situation going, can you do somebody, somewhere, do something.
Yeah.
And then what did I wrote about Preston Williams yesterday, Bloom. It was weird. I was like, what? Why is this story on the news? I was all grumpy. Shocker. I was grumpy. Preston Williams remains on the shelf. He's on the reserve injured list and isn't yet ready to practice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, whatever. By the way, we're watching Malcolm Perry being used in the slot. More. So, interesting names. I like Jakeem Grant, whatever, but it's basically Devontae Parker. But the passing game changes if it's Fitzpatrick compared to if it's Tua.
Yeah, big changes. And we're not going to know until Sunday. Flores has already said Sunday. Flo says, kiss my grits. You aren't going to find out until Sunday who's starting a quarterback.
That's a deep pull.
So, Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm interested. Without Ryan Fitzpatrick, if it's Tua, and I'm not as interested. And again, we watched them last year in a tank for Tua a year, play Ryan Fitzpatrick and have some success, at least after Josh Rosen failed. Now we're on the other side of that, and it's kind of the opposite conundrum of the future versus the present, except the present is now potentially the playoffs. So we'll watch how they handle that. And, again, just beat the teams you're supposed to beat. This is how it is in the AFC. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and you can go to the playoffs. And Miami's been doing that. They're supposed to beat Cincinnati.
They are supposed to beat them, and very handily. So, people say, lots of points. Yeah, they also just might not do much because they don't have to. Jacksonville and Minnesota. Speaking of maybe not doing much because they don't have to. Jacksonville, Minnesota up next. Minnesota side's much, much more exciting, Bloom. So let's get the Jacksonville side out of the way. DJ Chark's the wide receiver 3, and James Robinson's an RB1, and everyone else you're avoiding.
Yeah, we continue to be inspired by Robinson. If Chark is out, Colin Johnson, the 5th rounder from Texas, I got the long touchdown last week. See, this is an inspirational story. Come on, let's give Mike Glennon his moment. You know, the story here is that he never thought he would get to be a quarterback in the NFL again, and now he is, and he's let her rip. And Jacksonville, this is our Gardner Minshew plucky underdog going to Minnesota.
Well, and did you want to unpack the Mike Glennon thing a little bit? Or is it more of a Thursday night thing? Because honestly, you look back at that first year with Tampa, what was it, like 19 touchdowns, 1 or 2 interceptions, whatever it was? Like, and then, you know, teams give up on guys quicker. And there are Rich Gannons, right? I'm not calling Mike Glennon Rich Gannon at all. But like, people give up, teams certainly give up on quarterbacks. Some not fast enough. Lassie bark. But yeah, so way to go, Mike Glennon. There you go. I'll give you the Sir Smoke a lot. Let's talk about the other side of this matchup, Bloom, and the Minnesota side, because Adam Thielen's back. So Adam Thielen out there with Justin Jefferson doing great things against this Jacksonville defense, using air quotes there. Fantasy chams are wondering if Dalvin Cook's going to have a more limited role. Does that lead to more Alexander Madison, or is he a verb? Did I get that right, Bloom? You know, so did you get Madison this week? Sounds kind of dirty. But, okay, are we going to see a little bit more? And even Cook limited in this matchup, if he is limited, by the way, it's still an RB1.
Yeah. That's what we're watching here with Cook. And it was interesting because, you know, the team said he's beat up. And you've been watching him. I've talked about this a couple of times in the last month. You watch him, and he has a running style that just does not spare his body any punishment. And so it was just obvious. But when they asked Cook, he didn't want to hear that, which is great. I mean, it's about his spirit. It's about the way he plays the position. But again, in turn, that leaves him open to getting worn down. So that's something to watch, because you still have Tampa, you still have Chicago, you still have New Orleans left. And those teams are definitely going to give him even more punishment. Vikings are pushing for the playoffs. Again, the Vikings have let 3 games slip away that they easily could have won. But I think you're right, Cease, to throw the spotlight there on Madison as someone who could have some value down the stretch, or more value than we're even envisioning, even though those are some tough matchups if Cook does miss time. Adam Thielen's back from COVID, so blame us for Jacksonville covering him and Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins, it's just volume really that determines whether he can be a quarterback 1. He's actually been pretty good lately as the quarterback scoring has been dropping off. I don't think we're going to see Irv Smith, so Kyle Rudolph still remains a what-the-heck tight end. And, you know, this could be a dangerous team to face in your building in the first round of the playoffs with their offense coming into focus. We saw them pull off the upset against New Orleans last year. So this should be a game that should be easy for them if they are going to indeed be a playoff team.
Bloom, I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah, I didn't call out Stoner.
I know, man. How could you not tell me Eric Stoner is in our chat room? I mean, you talk about him almost every show.
I know. I don't want to scare him away by us pointing his attention. So yes, it's great. It's esteemed.
Right.
There's people out there. We love everybody who listens to our show.
Yes.
There's people out there that are just truly like, when I hear that they're listening, spending time, their precious life listening to our show, it feels like a compliment. So yeah, welcome, Eric.
Yeah. It's like the old saying. Who was it? I think it was Dennis Miller that would say, like, okay, if you see me out in public, come by and say hi, right? Like I'm just a regular person. Stop by and say hi to me if you like my show or whatever. But if you see me out at dinner, having dinner with William Shatner, discussing the Squire of Gothos episode, leave me alone. I'm not there for you. I'm there for me. Anyway, that's a very rare Star Trek reference on this show. Let's get to the stars. Beam me up to Vegas and the Jets. Beam me up to Devontae Booker. Okay. Okay, Sandy. And also, nobody gets that reference except Denver listeners. We're watching the report for Josh Jacobs. Now, you say it's the Jets, Bloom. Okay, well, they could start Devontae Booker. They could win this one easily. How do they bounce back? I mean, they look like trash, hot, stinky garbage, and they're supposed to be a playoff team, right? We're going to watch Cleveland Titans. They're going to bring it, right? That's playoff football. Obviously, this is Jets. That's not playoff football. But the Raiders, you were supposed to be there. Where's our pot stoner degenerate Jason? Where's your Raiders? Like, come on. So does that mean more Henry Ruggs? We're asking that every week. Obviously, You're starting Waller. Aguilar's a consideration as a wide receiver 3. I just want to know, is Jacobs going to play, and how do they bounce back?
Yeah, the big question for fantasy, because you expect it's the Jets, so you expect the Raiders to have a favorable game script for the running game. But Josh Jacobs is one of those backs now 2 years in that in the year we just wonder when the crack's going to start to show again. Because like Cook, the way he runs the ball, the way he doesn't have regard for his own body, also the way that John Gruden will use him at times. But if it's just Devontae Booker here, you got to play Booker because of the opportunity for touchdowns. The run defense generally stops the run, but can give up really big plays against the run. Still going to play Darren Waller. And I can't remember who was it pointed out Waller's been over 50 yards like twice this year, but he's still like the second best fantasy tight end you could have had this year, which just shows how bad it has been. And you're not trusting anybody else. I mean, it's the Jets, so you kind of want to, throw in a Nelson Aguilar or Hunter Renfrow and see what happens. But Derek Carr was terrible, just terrible last week. That's the thing you can't figure out. This Raiders team, they beat the Chiefs. They played the Chiefs straight up, and the Falcons just humiliate them. The Jets, I have no idea what to make out of the Jets, but this feels like that game that could ruin a 0 for them, too. Two teams with those zeros going for the perfect 16. The Raiders, this isn't a given that the Jets will lose.
Yeah, all right. Jets side and Sam Darnold side showed some life for Brashad Perriman and Denzel Mims. We're curious about that, right? They look good with Joe Flacco. Would they look good with Sam Darnold? On the air yesterday, I called him Sam Bradford. I was like, oh, by the way, nobody's talking about Sam Bradford unless you're Pat Shurmur, because you're pointing to that as your great success in the NFL. Well, you had some great success with Sam Bradford. Okay. All right. Anyway, it's the Broncos show. Let's make it a Jets show just a little bit, Bloom. Gore running hard. By the way, can I rant a little bit?
Oh God.
I've been so like pent up, right? Some rage, frustration. Because, and I rarely like pay attention to what other analysts are saying. And again, I use air quotes even with myself, right?
Yeah.
I just watch football and talk about football. You can't just pick the next guy up and say, this is my biggest sleeper who's going to pay off ever. You can't just pick the next guy up when this Jets backfield. It's like, because I had picked up, and I usually, Bloom, it's not for me because one, here's a sick brag, bro. Like, okay, I'm too busy to watch what anybody else is doing. But when people alert me to like, well, this guy said this, what about this guy? And I'm like, the reserve players actually have to be good. It can't just be, and this has become kind of a cutesy thing in fantasy football analysis. It's been that way for years, so I guess I don't know why I'm ranting about it now. But like, just because someone goes down and then, analysts will jump on, because they always want to be first. I don't know, just be good. Right. And I can't stand, just like I told you. Oh, shut the hell up, dude. Like, please just be good at what you do. If you're good, people will understand. People will respect you for that more so than you calling yourself out on Twitter, which is 3% of our audience and largely trash anyway. So I got my social networking rant and fantasy analyst rant in the same rant, Bloom. Very good. But it's not as simple. It's about matchups. It's about skill. Like, please, anyone out there with a microphone or a brain, if somebody goes down, don't just pick the backup. It's like, sometimes that does work out. And sometimes even guys with lesser talent can come through and be very fantasy relevant. Matt Asiata, ladies and gentlemen, like, okay, somebody like that. But have some more nuance with what you say. I just get sick and tired of the like, well, this guy said that the backup and Ty Johnson. I was like, oh my God. Like, please. Do you even watch football? There you go. Sorry, Bloom.
Do you even watch football? It always leads back to that.
Yes. It always leads back to the Jets, I guess. I don't know.
This is what we do instead of talking about the Jets, basically.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, because there's something about the Jets, dare I say, Cecil, they're fitting for this moment in human history. I mean, they're fitting for this moment whenever there's somebody in charge that says outrageous things, and everybody can see they're not fit for the job they're doing, and yet they're still in charge for the Jets.
Right.
And every week we get to watch it. Sorry, Jets fans. Excuses. We're crossing out excuses, right? Well, Sam Darnold had his top 3 receivers. You saw Flacco have a good game against the Patriots with the top 3 receivers. No, at least not against Miami. The same with Flacco and backups at receiver as they do with Darnold and the starters. I guess we can still talk about the offensive line or the running game or the play calling. And you see this stuff? I mean, it was so. Here's how bad it is with the Jets. We're turning the Jets into like the longest part of the show, Cease. Here's how bad it is with the Jets. I can't remember who it was. Griffin, I think. I can't remember his first name. Saying that the Gase's like special play calling is that they call the plays for the drive during the drive before, and they're not even paying attention to what's happening in the game at the time because they're like drawing up the plays for the next drive. There was something where low gains, because it's Gase low gains. Let's be fair. It's not just Gase. It's Gase low gains. It's a package deal. And
that sounds like something on a drug commercial, right?
Right.
You have COPD, get your Gase slow gains.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really ludicrous, and you really, again, just like what's going on with our country, like there's nothing you could hear that you have to say like that can't be true. It might be true about the Jets and calling the plays the drive before. Gay said something to the effect of they draw up the plays and he calls third downs, some special system. So enjoy that special system. The Raiders might be so bad that this is an interesting game, and maybe there's some Jets fantasy value. You put together a GPP Jets somehow win lineup, and that's about the most fun I can make out of this.
Yeah, okay. More fun in Indianapolis and Houston, right? Right. Especially with Jonathan Taylor back on the Colts side of things. Now that might make Nyheim Hines GMs be like, oh, and certainly, you look to Taylor for him to carry a large workload against the Texans team. Well, there's room for both. There's room for Michael Pittman. That's for sure. Most valuable Colts asset in terms of the receiving game. And then do you really want to play the roulette that is the Colts tight end? I love always the black, never the red, Bloom. I love roulette, even though it's got the worst odds in the casino, like black 17 and always the black, never the red. And maybe 22 once in a while from my man, CJ Anderson. But Bloom, do you really want to play roulette when it comes to Colts tight ends, or even really this Colts offense outside of a couple of players?
Rivers should have to pass a lot in this one. Deshaun Watson's playing really well, so I don't think the Indies can be able to go into his shell on offense. That being said, Jonathan Taylor could have a very good day against Houston. I think he's still running back too. And I'll keep playing Nyheim Hines in PPR leagues. I think that obviously there's a connection there. And again, if you expect it to be a more wide open, high scoring game, then could be a big reception day for Nyheim Hines. I think it was an overtime game where both teams were in the 30s last year or 2 years ago. It's the record-setting game for QT. Hines had a big game in that game also, if I remember correctly, which I may not any time I'm talking about anything now. So Pittman, if you're going to play a wide receiver, it's T.Y. Hilton, right? Texans week. It's T.Y. Hilton week. And he just scored last week, finally. So if you're going to, what the heck, flex a receiver here, Pittman has lost that title. It goes to Hilton for this week. Like you said, the three-headed tight end playing roulette. Trey Burton did look good last week, and they do give him chances to score at the goal line. So he's certainly a what-the-heck tight end. Remember, by the way, this offense was really good last week until Anthony Costanzo went down. He'll be back maybe before the end of the year, maybe for the Steelers game, week 16. But Ryan Kelly should be back. So that could help. Is this offense really ground to a halt after scoring on those two opening drives against Tennessee? And I love roulette, Cease. I love roulette because we're not lying to ourselves. It's pure chance. Pure chance. I always go to the roulette. We've had a lot of good times at the roulette table.
Oh, yes.
And I embrace it. Embrace the chance. But like you said, not so much in football.
Not so very much in the National Football League. The Texans side, is David Johnson going to be back? Like, he's pulled off of the IR list, right? I'm looking at the Newswire yesterday that David Johnson may return soon. He's been designated a return from the reserve injured list. The team does have 21 days now to add him to their active roster. So, okay, Sandy, is David Johnson going to be back? We know Will Fuller's not going to be out there. So the Kiki Cutie hype train, Bloom, that you have been piloting You didn't go to Texas Tech. Like, that's a weird thing. You went to Syracuse. Yeah. You went to UT. But those Red Raiders, they've got your heart, Bloom. And certainly we don't ever shy away from those type of discussions on this show. So you love who you love, right? You love who you love. You love Kiki. How's he play this week against the Colts?
Yeah, I just thought Kiki could be Hunter Renfrow with speed and quickness, of deep threat Hunter Renfrow, if you will, with QT played with Patrick Mahomes. Deshaun Watson's playing great. He's back to that Deshaun Watson that lifts the values of the players around him. So, of course, Brandon Cooks without Will Fuller. Kiki QT at least is a what-the-heck flex. He's going to be playing basically in every down role, probably playing outside. Jordan Akins could get some slots naps. I'm not going with Akins this week, but I'm watching that. That could be interesting where we're looking for answers at tight end. And then there's Duke Johnson catching that wheel route last week. Maybe he's the guy who takes up those extra targets vacated by Will Fuller. And then is the Colts defense a good defense? Again, Eric Stoner, if he's still here, also admirer bet saying it's a fake defense. It's a regular season defense, this Tampa 2, unless you're Lovie Smith. Danico Autry's going to be back. I don't know about DeForest Buckner yet, so that also changes the complexion of this defense, Bobby Okereke. But you have to think it's going to be a high-scoring game. You have to think that Deshaun Watson's going to have some success here. And Houston is embracing their role as spoiler. I'm looking forward to this one for fantasy. I think if you have a piece of it, it could really help get you over the top.
Get you over the top with our final game in part 1 of the Week 13 preview here on the Audible. Then we'll take a little intermission. What will you do during intermission, Blue?
Lobby. Get myself a snack.
Oh, okay. There you go. Pour yourself a shot. I have that. I have you saying that. I have so much from the cutting room floor, dude. It's funny. And I know, Bloom, you don't listen to the episodes after I post them. But you always can tell either what we're listening to, or we try to send little messages with the intro. Mm-hmm. So always, if you're Audible alum, you understand this, the intro, and also at the end of every show, I put in a little. It's my signature. Mm-hmm. It'll be a little sound bite, either from a movie, from some YouTube clip, or from us. And I've got us saying everything.
You can do the deep fake, right?
Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. A lot of deep fake George Lucas. I did that for like a month. Anyway, final game is the Rams and the Cardinals. This one's a big one, an important one, right? So Rams side, it's like, okay, you've kind of figured things out, except for with that backfield. The Rams story is kind of the same. Now with more Cam Akers, I don't know. But against Arizona, how do the Rams best attack and go forth and move forward? You've got committees upon committees. You got your wide receivers that you understand. And do you trust Jared Goff? Like, man, again, back to that Goff Tannehill questions from earlier, from last night, in fact. But like, okay, Rams, what can you do against Arizona?
This is a good one because it's kind of an elimination game. I mean, the NFC may be somewhat predictable. Look, Arizona's 6-5 now. If they lose, now here's Minnesota, maybe Chicago saying hello, looking to pass them in the standings. The Rams are slipping a little bit too. And man, is this a hard offense to get a handle on. See, since it's Sean McVay, or is it Jared Goff's lack of agency when I say Sean McVay? That is the reason this offense could look so wildly different from week to week in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, production. And we saw last week, obviously, Robert Saleh, he's going to be a head coach somewhere next year. He has Goff's number or McVay's number. Like, I mean, I can't, my brain kind of gets befuddled. Like, am I talking about Goff or McVay when I'm talking about how this offense is doing? And really, I think the question here revolves around Vance Joseph. Pull it up, Cecil. Vance Joseph. That it's all about the Cardinals. They're going to play them again in week 16. We're back. I mean, week 17, I think. We're back. Just like, by the way, that Indy-Houston game is going to be played again in 2 weeks. Speaking of, we're back. And we're back. So how will Jared Goff look against this? Isaiah Simmons, no Chandler Jones, of course. He was good last year against Arizona. Had very good performance against Arizona. So that was a Vance Joseph defense. So I'm going to say good games for Goff, Kupp, Woods, and maybe Akers. We'll see if they reassess priorities there with Akers having that 61-yard run. They did let him finish the drive. So we'll see what the offense can do. But I do think that the Rams defense will show up against a Kyler Murray that makes us worried.
Yeah, Murray, worry. They rhyme. It's not a coincidence. By the way, Bloom, VJ's like Candyman because every time you say his name, he appears. And he says, when it's cold, it's
underrated film. Underrated film. There's a good documentary about like the black horror films. That I highly recommend. I can't remember the name of it though.
Is it on Netflix? Probably.
Yeah, or one of those streamers.
Probably. All right, let's just keep raising our price. How about that? Anyway, you have a choice, Bloom, and I think I know which choice you'll take.
Okay.
You give it when it comes to Kyler Murray. Are you more Chappelle Show,
right,
or are you more Peyton?
Yeah.
This week against the Rams, because that's where it comes down to, right? We can talk about Kenyon Drake running tough and blah, 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 the receivers, blah, 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 Nuke Hopkins. I just want to know, how does Kyler Murray, if you could fast forward to the end of this game, are you going to be Mr. Joe Rogan? Are you going to be like that? Or are you going to be like, oh, come on, what the hell, man? Peyton.
Well, that's, we've been like, oh, man, dang it. Gosh darn it. We've been like that for the last couple of weeks with Murray. And see, we think about these things. Taysom Hill, we were talking about earlier. It challenges you in terms of fantasy football prowess or acumen. That are you going to trust the whole sample, the 12-week sample, or are you going to put weight on the most recent data we've been getting about where these offenses are, roles that players have, how productive, how efficient they can be. And the last couple of weeks for Arizona doesn't look great for Murray. He hasn't been as effective as a runner. He hasn't been as effective as a passer, and it coincides with a shoulder injury, a throwing shoulder injury. Now you have the Rams with Aaron Donald. You have the Rams with Jalen Ramsey traveling probably with DeAndre Hopkins. Remember, they used to be in the same division. So I'm not optimistic. Now, I'm not saying to bench Kyler Murray. Like, I mean, someone says Murray or Taysom Hill. I mean, they're both leaps of faith in some ways.
Yeah.
But you can also see from last week that Kenyon Drake is getting the call inside the 5. If he had 3 touchdowns last week, they probably would have won. He had 2. Last play of the first half. You still have Chase Edmonds as that what the heck flex. And again, if you think the Rams are going to have offensive success against Arizona, then that points more towards an Edmonds game than a Drake game. Christian Kirk was red hot. There was a 3-week stretch that he was like a top 5 wide receiver. Now he's dropping passes in the end zone. It's just not looking that good. And you would think against the Rams, with Ramsey potentially wiping out Hopkins, he would have more of an opportunity here. We'll watch Fitzgerald with the COVID situation. Andy Isabella played a bigger role last week. It's a very interesting game, and both the teams kind of limp in here. So, it's the NFC West. You know that we can get very unpredictable results.
That is something I would say double true. All right, that's a wrap for part 1 of the Week 13 preview here on the Audible. YouTube watchers, we're not going anywhere. We're just going to take a little break. Probably going to grab some more water. Bloom, what can you do in 30 seconds? Don't answer that.
They don't call me the Minuteman for nothing.
All right, we will grab a quick break. Be right back right here in this stream. We're not going anywhere. And your mic's hot, Bloom. So be sure, get off the air and be like, son of a bitch. Every mic is hot. That's the best way to treat any microphone you run into. So, grab a quick break. Be back with part 2 in just a bit. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Be back right after this. Okay, there we go. And Bloom's not back yet. There he is. I see him. I see you, Sandy. I've often wondered, is this shirt one of those, factory default? X run for the factory that was messed up a little bit because like the logo, like it's diagonal. See, and I'm like trying to sit like this, like so it's straight. That's the artist in me, Bloom. If things aren't in proper perspective, the artist in me, you can tell.
You would love New Orleans. There's something about this city that the light is always a good artist light, like for painters. It's incredible. There's certain times of the year like where the sun comes up and goes down. And then, you have the color palette of New Orleans is different than any other city in the country. It's an incredible the perspective. It always feels like you're in a snow globe. If you read Confederacy of Dunces, it's like there's the New Orleans, then you get on the causeway and you get out of New Orleans, like you're in the rest of the world. There's New Orleans and there's the rest of the world. And you feel that way with the light here.
It does feel like a different dimension.
Yeah. Yep.
That's for sure. That is for sure. All right, let's get it on in 3, 2, 1. Part 2 of the Week 13 preview continues here on the Audible, the footballguys.com podcast. And, well, I wish we could start with a better one, but it's Colt McCoy against Russell Wilson, ladies and gentlemen. The Giants at Seattle, starting with the Giants side first. Daniel Jones down with that hamstring injury. So here comes Colt McCoy. All right. Maybe not quite as boring as Brandon Allen, but adjust all your Giants projections accordingly, including for the guy who's the hottest running back in terms of touchdown streak. It's got to be the longest, right? Wayne Gallman. So, okay, let's talk about this Giants side first as they travel across the country to face Seattle.
Yeah, first place Giants. Let's not forget, first place Giants. Colt McCoy. Clayton Thorson. Maybe we'll see some Clayton Thorson before this one's overseas. Getting a few first-team snaps. Colt McCoy, flaccid, this offense now. Evan Ingram was coming on as downfield receiver. No. Darius Slayton's already been up and down anyway, now just down. Sterling Shepard could get a lot of short, easy passes from Colt McCoy, and Wayne Gallman probably running into tough defense that knows they don't have to defend downfield. So Gallman, not a great running back to play this week with Seattle's defense coming on. We'll watch what's going on with Carlos Dunlap, who's been a big part of this defense resurgence. And see, this is a moment to say, when you're looking at year-to-date rankings for units, for running games, passing games, run defense, pass defense, be careful. This is a different Seattle defense than the one that was getting raced up and down the field by opponents earlier. And I think especially against Colt McCoy, let's just say Seattle defense could be a great play this week.
It could be a great play. Will Russell Wilson be a great play? I mean, is he back to cooking? Is it, facing a team like the Giants? Does that get him to cook? By the way, no coach out there, defense coordinator specifically, should talk trash about DK Metcalf or to him.
It was a compliment.
Yeah, you will learn their rules when you face DK Metcalf. Hopefully he doesn't do too much against you because he can hurt you in a bad way. Tyler Lockett can hurt your soul, Bloom, because you start him. This is a great matchup. I love Tyler Lockett. And then he gets 3 for 25. Oh, God. So back to Russ cooking. Is he cooking or not? And is the key ingredient the rushing attack with Chris Carson back?
We did see Carlos Hyde get a lot more work than Chris Carson. Carson a lot more effective. Carson's hurting a little sore after the game, but should be fine. This does look like it could be a 50-50 committee, and a 50-50 committee with the Seahawks returning to a run-first mentality. You're definitely playing Carson Hyde a what-the-heck flex. Carson showing that burst, that stubborn ability to push through, fight through contact on his touchdown. And you have Russell Wilson not cooking, bussing tables, Cease. Or maybe he's like the host,
Okay.
He's not cooking. He's in the front of house. And that's okay because the defense is better and because the running game has the top 2 running backs back. But again, if someone said, so I have a way of hedging. Sorry, I do. Whenever people ask me a question, sometimes I'll say, this is who I would play, but I won't talk you out of the other guy, as opposed to just, this is who I'd play. And I think, if it's Taysom Hill or Russell Wilson, I won't talk you out of Taysom Hill. Because Russell Wilson, it's been, again, look at the trends for the last 2 or 3 weeks. This is maybe more telling than what to expect if we just look over the course of the entire year, especially in a game when we expect Seattle to comfortably control it. Jets next week similarly. They have Washington the week after that. So each time, test our assumptions here of how this offense is going to roll out there. But you're still going to play Metcalf. You're still going to play Lockett. Lockett especially, because if you envision Bradbury, who's having a tremendous season as the number one receiver, number one lockdown corner on the receivers, then Bradbury versus Metcalf, that's fun. That's exciting, like must-see TV kind of stuff. But then it's Lockett running free against the Giants. And Metcalf is just, man, he's just something else. He looks like he's not human, to be honest. It'd be easier to explain DK Metcalf if you said he's an experiment or something, because
Right.
it's fantastic to watch. And I think it's justice that the Seahawks are getting to harvest the value.
Well, and how many times do we see big, strong, physical receivers like that just stay the same?
Yeah.
The one thing I want to praise Metcalf for is changing his game. AJ Brown was so much better than him last year, like so much better. And it was obvious. And then he kind of, I don't know if he took that as an offense or whatever, but like he is becoming a more well-rounded receiver, incredibly dangerous already because of his physical gifts. But, it's one of the things we often remind people of, like, players don't stay the same. Some of them don't. Some do. But we've seen a million, he's big and strong, physical at the catch point, and then that's all he is forever. Still not a great route runner, still no great concentration, still no great body control, still no great footwork. You see Metcalf working on those things. That is very, very dangerous. Diego said he's a monster. That's right. That's right. Okay, let's move on then. And Philadelphia and Green Bay is the next game we're going to talk about, and which means we're going to talk about Carson Wentz, which makes me sad, Bloom. So try not to make me sad. Let's get the Eagles thing out of the way, because the Packers side is a little bit more interesting, although this game is pretty cut and dry.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Cease. I mean, I don't watch any of those Real Housewives shows. You ever watch any of those shows?
No, but it surprised me as somebody I know, I can't remember who it is right now, speaking of old man brain, like, was telling me, like, the Real Housewives, and I was surprised, like, they watched that show.
I don't know. I mean, I'm surprised sometimes he watches like Bachelor or Bachelorette or whatever. And reality TV in general taps into a different part of our brains. My theory on reality TV is it's mainly for people to watch and feel like I'm better than those people. Like, at least I'm not them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And Real Housewives, I think, does that, but then adds in I think a lot of times it's rich people, so I guess that's even like juicier to feel like I'm superior, morally superior or something like that, or at least my life isn't as much a mess as the people, right? So turn the page to the Eagles fast. Well, this is a franchise in great crisis right now, right? Like massive crisis. Is Howie gonna go? Is Doug Peterson gonna go? Is Carson Wentz gonna go? Someone's got to go. This was a once proud Super Bowl winning team with all the same cast of characters, and it's all falling apart. Like every week we watch it fall apart, Every week we see the deterioration of the Eagles, this blueprint, this franchise, this roster, this coaching staff. So, it's like, I'm sure fans of other teams, I mean, like if you're Detroit, you're like, well, at least we're going to have a fresh start. We know we're going to have a fresh start. Philadelphia. So, it's like watching that reality TV. It's going to be rough going to Lambeau. Oh, Carson. You just see he doesn't have confidence in his line. He doesn't have confidence in himself. He doesn't have confidence in the play calls. Why should he have confidence in these receivers? Dallas Goedert's going to be good, I think. It's like garbage time, right? Zach Ertz might be back. It's a tremendous matchup for Miles Sanders, but they won't use him. Last year, he was a big factor in their run to coming, and they're a half game out of first place, to winning the division. Maybe they pulled upset here. Maybe this is where the story changes. If that's the case, it's because Sanders gets like 25 touches for 200 total yards. They are still in it. But please don't give Alshon Jeffrey any more snaps. Please. I know you wasted a bunch of money on him this year. You made a bad decision, Howie. Please don't. I mean, we don't need to see any more Alshon Jeffrey. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's the Eagles, and no one's giving them a chance, so maybe they have them right where they want them.
Yeah, that's right. And for all the people like, just put in Jalen Hurts.
No.
You want to ruin that kid too?
Yeah.
All right. Because you've taken something special in Carson Wentz and you've turned it into a shut your mouth sandwich. So there's that. Cut that one, Chris. The Packers side of the ball. And again, okay, here we go. I'm just watching Alan Lazard, basically throwing him in as a what the heck flex. Starting Devontae Adams, starting Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams as a flex play, and of course Aaron Rodgers you're starting. So Packers side, all right, you're at home, withstand the Eagles' opposition.
Yeah, and again, we talked about last week, the Packers, on the other hand, they're making goo-goo eyes with LaFleur and Rodgers. Forget about Jordan Love and A.J. Dillon. Everything's good, at least the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing. We have seen against physical teams, the Green Bay shrink a little bit. We also see Eagles' run defense is pretty good. So if Jones and Jamal Williams are splitting like they were last week, there still can be there in terms of volume and goal line opportunities. Both of these guys worth playing. Maybe Jones is more of a running back 2, not a running back 1. Not if he's splitting with Jamal Williams. Williams more of a what the heck flex. Although maybe we may find that he's as good as Jones for fantasy going forward. We're going to watch the usage here, watch the effectiveness. You know that Aaron Rodgers is going to be effective. You know he's going to be effective throwing to Devontae Adams. Darius Slay, that's your assignment for this week. You know he's going to be effective throwing to one of Lazard or Valdez-Scantling. Valdez-Scantling did technically play last week, but I think you have to think Lazard is the better chance to make an impact in this one. And then there's Big Bob Tunyon, Roberto Grande. 2 weeks, 5 catches and a touchdown with Adams out there. So you like that in this one. You like Green Bay in this one, holding serve at Lambeau. And, I mean, it's a wide open NFC. As long as Aaron Rodgers is playing like this, they have to feel good.
I was texting with our man Frank Schwab yesterday.
Frank Schwab.
And, oh, man, I miss our brother. Right. Just because of the damn pandemic and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was just texting him like peak 2020 is when we saw Guns N' Roses and Snoop Dogg together at the Super Bowl. And it's been all downhill since then. But anyway, so we started talking about, he had picked the Steelers as, that Super Bowl champion. I think he got them at 30-1, Bloom. Anyway, so I was thinking about it, not to insult our man, Frank Schwab, dear friend. I want the Packers. I do. Yeah. I want Steelers Packers again, and I want revenge for 45.
No Rashard Mendenhall in this one.
To that, I would say let's move on. New England and Los Angeles. Speaking of moving on, New England side of things, like, are you really trusting Damiere Byrd and Jacoby Myers? Well, against the Chargers, the way they choke, you might. Damian Harris, you're trusting. James White, you have in as at least what the heck flex, if not just a regular flex play in PPR leagues. And that comes back to Cam Newton this week. What are your thoughts and expectations for the Patriots playing the Chargers?
Hello, Joey Bosa. I mean, Patriots offense putting the ugly and winning ugly. So, okay, James White, Damian Harris, maybe what the heck flexes. Jacoby Myers, a high floor PPR wide receiver 3 flex type. If you think Justin Herbert's going to have a lot of success against New England, maybe that opens up more passing for Cam Newton and better chances for Myers. But they don't want Cam Newton to be passing. I think there's this idea of a question, a referendum. Do the Patriots want to consider going forward with Cam Newton next year? I feel like Cam Newton is kind of deciding that on the field. It's not, the answer is not yes. So they don't want Newton to be passing. I guess it comes down more to, again, Joey Bosa really made Josh Allen's day more difficult last week. I think he'll do the same anytime the Patriots do drop back to pass, which means they will try to really minimize that in this one. Try to stay alive. This is a Patriots team that says, like, we want to say in our death scene. We don't want other teams to decide our death scene, how it goes. We're not dead yet. The Chargers are dead, and see where the Patriots are wondering whether to go forward with Cam Newton. I wonder if the Chargers are asking the same question about Anthony Lynn.
Or if the Spanos are just like, who cares? We own an NFL team.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And yeah, okay, Anthony Lynn, great guy, a very good coach, but again, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. Like they choke. They choke all the time. They do have great players. And what's the analogy, Bloom? Because last week, weren't sure Austin Eckler's going to be, and there's back.
Yeah.
So it's that, wild turkey surprise, something that made you very happy, always quoting Looney Tunes. Austin Eckler back in your lineups, top 5 fantasy running back in PPR leagues, to be sure. In this matchup, you look to Keenan Allen. Mike Williams didn't practice yesterday, but that's just a rest thing. So Williams is in as like a wide receiver 4, flex play for you. Hunter Henry's a tight end 1, lower end 1, but still okay, Chargers with Herbert and Eckler. Now with more Eckler, makes it more exciting.
Yeah, maybe not as good. That's a big question I have. And what will Belichick have for him? Look, Bill Belichick will have something for Justin Herbert that'll surprise him. Something that like last week against the Kyler Murray, it was showing a lot of cover 0. Here we come, and then dropping guys into coverage. But you don't know who. It's going to change, right? So you're looking and you feel like you're going to have to make a quick decision, but then a second later, there's different guys dropping into coverage than you expected, and it frazzles your circuits. I think he's going to find ways to frazzle Justin Herbert's circuits in this one. Because Herbert with Austin Eckler, all of a sudden it's like that gravitational pull. And a lot of targets to Eckler, a lot fewer to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and just not that dangerous downfield passing offense against Buffalo. Credit Travius White, who had a really good game last week too. You're still going to keep playing Keenan Allen, but you're not going to be shocked if he only has 4 or 5 catches again, and Eckler has like 10 catches. And yes, you're playing Eckler. He's foundational in this offense. And Mike Williams. Now, do you play Mike Williams? The last time these teams played was the playoffs 2 years ago. And Stephon Gilmore traveled with Keenan Allen. It was Mike Williams getting the safety help over the top. So maybe there's a little more of a chance of Williams. It's like J.C. Jackson. For him to come through with a big play downfield here. You do know that Hunter Henry is going to have a play or 2, or certainly he had 7 catches last week. So maybe he's one of the answers, right? If you think of it in Belichick terms, you're like, you basically want Herbert to be throwing to Henry, like more than you want him to be throwing to Allen or Williams or Eckler. But little nugget from this week is that Belichick's been following Hunter Henry since he was in high school. Kevin Kelly, the name comes up. So that's interesting. Always had a lot of respect there. Maybe that's where Henry ends up next year.
They could use him. Yeah. That's for sure. They could use him. That's right. Sunday night football. Sometimes we get great games, and other times we get Denver and Kansas City.
What are we going to record, Cease? I guess we're just going to...
Oh, God. Don't let me think about that. Because I'm on 2 to 4, by the way.
Oh, boy.
Doing a pregame show. So it takes out any sort of window we'd have to do like morning games. Maybe Monday morning. Maybe. Look at us do business right on that. Right in front of
all the Broncos fans are in mourning. Mourning is the word for Denver.
This game will get you fired. Okay. And I'd rather talk about the spin doctors that are out there saying like, there's no way Vic Fangio would get fired. Yeah, you work for the team. What else are you going to say? Like, come on. Like, we're more nuanced than that. At least most fans should be. Although Broncos country, I think I mentioned this on one of the shows already, but like, I had to mute like 20 people on Sunday just because it's like, hey, the Broncos give up more 200-yard rushing games. Well, their defense was tired because they don't have a quarterback. And oh, shut up. They're weak against the run, man. They're weak against pretty much anything. Now Bryce Callahan's on IR. Shocker. The guy that didn't play full 16 games ever is on injured reserve now with the damn foot injury. Okay. And if you get embarrassed, that you think of the Eagles, right, Bloom, being that team that's in such dire straits. It's all bad with the Broncos. All of it. And if you get embarrassed by the Chiefs, wouldn't be surprised if some people got fired the next day. Okay, now the buzz has always been Fangio is safe, Elway's not. And with Fangio's comments, like when he comes out and throws all the quarterbacks under the bus, you think one of 2 things. Well, you think many things, but you also think, okay, that's a coach that knows he's safe because you can't be that real in the press. You get to come out and be like, I was disappointed in the quarterbacks. Well, you're the one that let them get together in an extra meeting where Drew Lock didn't wear his mask. Yeah, it hurts his soul. Sure, be the backup to Matthew Stafford. Maybe that's how you save Drew Lock. But if not, I mean, is there really any saving Drew Lock? Seriously, is that you're asking for the Death Star shot for him to be a franchise quarterback. That's what you're asking for now. There have been too many bad habits that have developed. There have been too many projects like his feet that have not been fixed. His processor's slow, and he's not a fit in Shermer's offense. So do you really want to keep this thing together? Now, Matthew Stafford with Shermer and Fangio, okay, you could salvage some things there. And then you might be able to salvage Drew Lock. I'm getting ahead, Bloom, like way ahead because I'm talking about next year. But like, be careful with this game because, okay, what's the over-under on them mentioning that Drew Lock's from Kansas City? 10. I'm going to take the over. Hey, everybody is from Kansas City. He's never thrown a touchdown against the Chiefs. The Chiefs were toying with the Broncos last time. And people around the building tell me that. Like, yeah, we were just trying stuff. Because they didn't want to humiliate Denver. And they still beat them by, 20 or whatever it was? Like,
right.
Just be careful. Be careful who you listen to. And know that team-managed media is always going to be team-managed media. Bloom, would you be surprised to know that with the new COVID protocols, they have even more shrunk the media pool? Guess who's not allowed out at Dove Valley anymore?
Oh no.
Yeah. One of the largest radio stations in the country, The Fan, does not have access to the Broncos headquarters. I wonder why. I know.
Your safety.
Yeah, of course.
Media safety.
Yes, of course. That's always forever what it is. Although you let tiny blogs in there. Okay. All right. And all due respect to anyone that's at any level doing anything. If you're out there putting in the grind, I respect you. But I mean, at the end of the day, you have one of the country's largest and most popular radio stations that doesn't have access to their team. Okay. That's how we're going to do it. So how are the Broncos going to do it? I don't even really care about this game. Like Lindsey's banged up, whatever. Like, okay. Gordon's terrible, awful move. Judy's banged up and Locke doesn't see him open anyway. I really give a lot of credit to Noah Fant because he's not himself and he's out there battling. So, low end tight end one, whatever you want to say, but like, just be careful. Be careful who you listen to because team managed media will tell you they're not going to fire. They'll fire Tom McMahon, their special teams coach, but they're not firing anybody else. Are you sure? Because this type of game, if you're humiliated again, the Broncos are a laughingstock. Bloom, we've been doing this show long enough, and we understand the nature of this franchise. Long, storied, historic, upstanding with Mr. Bolin, certainly. That's all gone. They're a laughingstock in the league. And you get embarrassed like this on a national stage against the Chiefs. I'm just saying, I hope they don't get embarrassed for the sake of people losing their job.
I got talking head seats. We're on the road to nowhere. Toying with was exactly the phrase that I had for how the game went the first time. And I would expect it to happen again. I would expect Kansas City's defense to have a lot of success like they had before. Melvin Gordon, you might play because if Lindsey's not out there, he has more of a shot of that garbage time touchdown. It is going to be garbage time, though. And like you said, no Fant gritting his teeth, toughing it out. Not really anybody else to play in this passing game. It's just what this is going to be, Cease, again, in that reality show, Real Housewives kind of paradigm. This is going to be everybody seeing how bad things have gotten in Denver in a national audience as the Kansas City just tunes up.
Yeah, tunes up and does whatever they want. I mean, Tyreek Hill, what? You're going to have Michael Ojemudia on him? Or AJ Boy? AJ Boy is not good. Sorry. He had one good year, and like Fangio wanted him with the Bears because he had one good year with the Texans, and they had like one good year with Jacksonville when he was the number 2. Now he's your number 1. Like, it just don't make no sense. Like, it never made any sense to make a move for AJ Bouye unless he was going to be your number 2. And they want him to be a number 1. He's not a number 1. So Tyreek's going to destroy him. Travis Kelce's always going to destroy him. If they wanted to, they could feed Le'Veon Bell and he'd destroy him. I've got him as a what the heck flex this week. Obviously, McCole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson. It's all of them. All of them. Start them all because they can do whatever they want, Bloom. And the only kind of downside to starting your Chiefs is if they take their foot off the gas.
Right.
Because, again, Andy Reid has a lot of respect for Vic Fangio and may not push it as much as he could.
Yeah, that's my note. Really, is just you hope it doesn't get too easy, too out of hand, too quickly. Like you want the defense to only score one, maybe touchdown instead of two or three, and make this thing get away from the Broncos. Mahomes. See, so last time we saw Mahomes to Hill, they were threatening the record books. They made it look so easy against Tampa. They're going to make it look so easy. You kept saying number two, the Broncos defense, number two. And yeah, you play Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's Freudian, still in that fecal phase. And Kelsey and Hill and Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be in your lineup. Chance for a touchdown or more here. Like you said, Le'Veon Bell, those down ballot guys also with a chance because it's just Kansas City putting on a show. And you can feel it too, Cease, that Kansas City. I say this and I'm going to bloom it, but I think everybody is now starting to see that Kansas City, Pittsburgh, inevitable, the magnet drawing to each other and just what that beholds for us. I'm feeling we know what we're going to see Sunday night.
Yeah, and be careful what you ask for because there's an Eric Ebron drop pass that's haunting my dreams. Hey, Monday afternoon games. And Bloom, I texted this one to you, but I want to share it with our audience as well because it's awesome. Mm-hmm. Don't act like an aloha because your team is undefeated. And me, always about that Bugs Bunny life. Okay, so let's talk about it. Washington football team against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Antonio Gibson, was that his breakout game, Bloom? I've been waiting. Oh, we got it. Hey, Thanksgiving. Thank you, Antonio Gibson. Thank you very much. McLaurin, yeah. Again, Washington football team, pretty easy to figure out, but this is a Steelers defense now without Bud Dupree. And now I'm sad, Bloom. Don't make me sad. Let's talk Washington.
Yeah, Alex Highsmith, come on down.
His spin chop karate move is awesome.
That's right. Alex Smith, you're not optimistic about Alex Smith against the Steelers pass rush, even without Bud Dupree. That being said, you do have Antonio Gibson. I'm not optimistic. I wouldn't be playing Gibson in DFS, say, but I'm a Steelers fan, man. I can see in my mind's eye, what do you see that's scary, right? Like what Miles Sanders did earlier this year on draw plays, delays, let that pass rush, let that push come up, then do the handoff. Use the Steelers' aggressiveness against them. Screen passes, faking it. Jake Gruden's smart enough to figure this stuff out. So, the ball, the tennis ball with the dog, like move the ball over here, but then go over there. That's scary with it.
Or don't throw it with the dog. Like take the tennis ball, look, and then fake the throw.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Alex Smith's a veteran. He can execute these throws and understand how to sell the play to the Steelers defense. Antonio Gibson's interesting. Terry is scary. Absolutely, Terry McLaurin. When the pass rush doesn't get home, McLaurin's going to be running free. It could be a big game for him. We'll see, Logan Thomas. You expect this is a game where Alex Smith has to pass a lot. You're not running very much between the tackles against the Steelers. So J.D. McKissick. And if the Steelers get ahead in this game, it's J.D. McKissick mode on offense. And first place Washington football team, trying to come in and play spoiler. As the Steelers, their schedule, I felt weird watching a game on Wednesday afternoon. It had to be weird playing a game on Wednesday afternoon, then to turn around and play it on Monday afternoon. Because there's an aside here, Cease, of how football, one of the things that's comforting, ritual, right?
Yes, very much so.
Ritual is comforting, no matter what it is. Ritual is comforting. And the way the calendar passes, the weekly calendar passes, and the way football kind of pulls you through the week to the next thing and so on, it did feel like the universe was out of sorts on Wednesday, and the Steelers universe is out of sorts. So Washington could maybe take advantage of that.
Yeah, and why do the Ravens get to play on Tuesday? Seriously, why do the Ravens get to play on Tuesday?
Now you sound like a Steelers fan.
There we go. Let's talk Steelers side. Okay, Benny Snell. I told you off the air, Bloom. I was like, that's the first game I actually liked Benny Snell.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because he's pushing around the Ravens. So, anytime you beat up on the Ratbirds, it's okay with me. Just keep throwing to Juju. Just keep throwing to Chase. Deontay needs to come through a little bit better. We talk about Deontay Johnson being like that young Antonio Brown or even a young Emmanuel Sanders, people remember. But those guys were more consistent in terms of chips are down, Ben's in trouble, and he's throwing in this impossible grab, and you got to make it, dude. You got to make it. And Deontay wasn't. Maybe he's getting infected by Droptimus Prime.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, but I'm going to steal that. Droptimus Prime, Eric Ebron. So let's talk about these Steelers on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, it's absolutely the headline here. Drops. Steelers offense is different. I like it, though. It's a dink and dunk pass offense, which when you're throwing to Johnson and Smith-Schuster and then occasionally taking those shots to Claypool and catching Ebron, if none of that's there, that's effective. If they're not running, I mean, they're going to be passing 2 to 3 times for every run, which is the way it should be. We'll see if James Conner's back out there. Cancer survivor, COVID, prayers up, or just this is not a typical. It'll be we've been lulled into this that so many players have gotten COVID that we don't even necessarily pause to think about, like, I hope this doesn't derail their career. I hope this doesn't something for their family, all those things. But with James Conner, when you hear about James Conner, I want this to go smoothly, but it could be more Benny Snell, who just plays with max effort, which is enough with this offense. Finesse offensive line, but you saw him do some things in the passing game also. So you're playing Juju, you're playing Chase Claypool, and man, if Chase Claypool, if we could just get him to have that my ball mentality, that's a missing piece. Part of the reason I was a little more lukewarm on him. You see what he could be if he had that consistently. Johnson, as you mentioned, inconsistent focus. I think they're focus drops, but obviously the target share is still there for him. And Juju with old man game, even though he's a young man. Ebron, still a good fantasy tight end, even though it makes my heart skip a beat every time I see the balls in the air to him. 12-0, Cecil. Or 11-0. Going for 12-0. Sorry.
Yes.
Looking at 13-0. I was looking ahead, Cease.
Now you've bloomed them.
I did bloom them.
By the way, undefeated's not the point. Like they'll lose one of these games. Maybe Cleveland week 17. Maybe Buffalo. Maybe Indy. Yeah. Maybe this game. To me, it's just about the ring. Like, just get another ring for Ben. Get another ring for Tomlin. Like, it's a disgrace that Ben, Brown, and Bell didn't get a ring and multiple rings. Like, it's an absolute disgrace.
So you're right, but just looking ahead, 13-0. Just Steelers fans, as we go through this whole, because absolutely there's a relief, there's an exhale almost if the team loses. See, this is me emotionally preparing myself for the loss, right? 4 teams other than the Dolphins, 72 Dolphins have gone 13-0. See, 4 teams. 98 Broncos.
Nice.
The 09 Saints.
Okay.
The 05 Colts. The Steelers beat them in their first playoff game, and the 2011 Packers, who were defending that title that Rashard Mendenhall fumbled away for the Steelers. So going undefeated that late in the season can be bad. We saw, of course, what happened with the Patriots going 16-0. So we'll see. I definitely think the Steelers, from a mindset approach, would feel better not having to answer questions about it or think about it for the rest of the year.
All right. My favorite game this week, Bloom, might be the Monday night game. Buffalo and San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
And the 49ers side has a few more reasons to be excited. We'll talk about that. But let's get the Buffalo side out of the way, which is, okay, what's the practice status of John Brown? Because that makes Josh Allen look better. And Josh Allen, what he could do as a runner and a passer, blah, blah, blah. Stephon Diggs, we're watching to see if the tight ends start to do more. And I'm also watching to see, does this running back situation almost kind of resort itself? Because there was a time, okay, it's still Singletary, and no, it's Namas, and then it was neither one of them. Maybe it's back to being Singletary. I don't know. But we'll watch this very mindfully and very curiously on Monday night.
A real interesting set of games, the Monday, Tuesday games. I was playing around with these because they all feel like they should have been Super Bowls, right? Like there should have or could have been a Washington-Pittsburgh Super Bowl. Like the strike year, the year they got the big lead early against the Chargers and then lost at home in the playoffs. Chargers lose to the Dolphins lose to Washington. Buffalo, San Francisco, I mean, you could pick any year there that these two teams could have played in the Super Bowl during the peak. And now the peak is coming back for Buffalo, but this is a great test. It's a great test for Josh Allen on the road against Robert Saleh's defense in Arizona, by the way. A great test for Stephon Diggs, probably Patrick Peterson. You like him here with no John Brown, and we've seen Josh Allen a lot less effective when Brown is out, but Brown being out, maybe you're looking at Cole Beasley. Gabriel Davis is what the heck flexes. Running game came on last week. You're still not resorting to anybody in this running game, Moss and Singletary, although it helps this offense go. But we're going to get a chance to watch this offense against a defense that really came alive with the return of some guys last week. Richard Sherman being most prominent there. Robert Saleh, again, we're going to mention his name, likely a head coach somewhere next year. And San Francisco's still alive. And Buffalo's still alive, but there's Miami. I mean, you would think, I'm blooming them, they would have beaten Cincinnati on by this time. And the next thing you know, Buffalo's not even short of winning the division. Miami's right there with them. Imagine if Miami had just beaten Denver. So Buffalo has not that much of a margin of error. San Francisco doesn't have much of a margin of error either, but I think they're ready for this. And I think we can't rate them as a also ran, even with Nick Mullins at quarterback. I think we have to look at them as a team that's going to be a tough out every week.
Every week, and Brandon Ayuk's back. Deebo Samuel's already back, but now Samuel Ayuk, I don't feel like we've gotten to see that very much of it all this year, Bloom. It's like, this is what it's supposed to look like. Deebo and Ayuk. That could be pretty good, even for Nick Mullins, who they really like. They've always liked. And then Raheem Mostert, who they really like. They've always liked. So now a 49ers team that is getting healthier, these weapons are back. The Bills defense isn't good. And the mystery remains, like, what exactly happened to Buffalo, because it didn't change personnel that much.
Yeah.
So San Francisco, always a tough out, could prove to be a victor on Monday night.
And we know with the Shanahan offense, it's always play calling, play design, play sequencing, and just execution. And Nick Mullins can execute. But like you said, with Ayuk and Samuel out there together, with Mostert, Jeff Wilson playing a bigger role in the backfield, no George Kittle. And since I had a big pang of remorse that I didn't include Kittle in the waiver wire show, especially the next day, because it should have been obvious that with the 49ers coming back, punching their way out of the corner, that Kittle getting back out there for week 15, week 16, week 17 becomes more possible. And Kittle this week said, they said 8, I said 6 weeks. So that's that last missing piece of the offense, right? San Francisco against Buffalo, you have to think they're going to have success here. You got to play Raheem Mostert. You got to play Deebo Samuel after how he looked. Ayuk, you have some hope for here. Just the plays work, and you get Samuel and Ayuk run after catchability going. Mostert, of course, can always play with those long touchdowns. And San Francisco is staying alive. And as they're discussing, including the esteemed Eric Stoner in the chat room, the Saline 786, hey, this is a 49ers team. Nobody would want them coming into their place in the first round of the playoffs. So they're feeding off of that. They like this. And I think that they invite the challenge of the Bills and everything they have ahead.
They invite the challenge. And the challenge now is, well, we still got one more game to go. Dallas and Baltimore. So there's our challenge. Tuesday night on Fox at M&T Bank Stadium. It's the Dallas Cowboys and fantasy GMs who are upset about Alvin Kamara. Well, the Ezekiel Elliott fantasy GMs are upset as well. And I don't know about you, Bloom, but I've already told some people to bench Zeke this week because they'll have better options out there. Now, where is that line? Is David Montgomery a better option than Zeke? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there is a line. There's a tipping point for everything in life. So let's talk about this Cowboys offense going up against that Baltimore team, the Baltimore defense, who's just trying to keep their head above water right now.
Yes. That being said, though, Cease, when you think of the person like hanging off the cliff, you know, the defense is the hand clinging to the cliff.
Yes.
The Baltimore defense is what is going to assert themselves and say, not this way. We're not going down. You saw that against Pittsburgh. And obviously a big part of the picture here is whether Lamar Jackson's going to be back or not. Whether Lamar Jackson's back or not, we know Andy Dalton's not going to have a great game here. Not against. And Cecil on both sides. Who's going to be playing for Baltimore on both sides of the ball? I have no idea. So we're gonna preview this game. I can't really say much to like different.
We should actually do the preview like Tuesday morning after the waiver show.
Right, exactly. But that being said, Baltimore's run defense has lost some key players, but Steelers weren't able to make a lot of incursions there. I think it's not extreme to be thinking about benching Ezekiel Elliott for Duke Johnson in a PPR or something like that, because this offensive line just is not going to be creating a lot of push, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Andy Dalton. You're going to play Amari Cooper. I think you're getting cute if you're playing Gallup or Lamb. Maybe Dalton Schultz is that struggle target. Dallas is still in it, still in the hunt. But as Baltimore sees, like you said, I mean, this is where the water's coming up to your neck and it's rising, and they have to stop the leak in the record, or you gotta beat Dallas, or you don't deserve to go to the playoffs. In this one, sees the year that Dez caught it, that could have been a year that we saw the Baltimore-Dallas Super Bowl. Would have been a great game if we would have got to see it that year. I think Baltimore went to New England and got in that 35-31 thriller. Both of those teams were Super Bowl worthy that year. I don't think either one is this year. We'll see if they can make it entertaining. Really, it's on Dallas to make it a game that we care about by hanging with Baltimore.
Hanging with the Ravens. Hanging with who the hell knows, Blue?
Yeah, Trace McSorley. Give him a shot. Come on. Let him play, buddy.
Get it for you, bud. Get him out there, bud. Why don't we draft Trace, bud? Is it Chase or Trace? I don't care, bud. Give me a scotch, bud. Like, okay. Ravens side, I don't know, Bloom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Play Dobbins. I mean, he should have been the lead back.
Is he gonna play?
Yeah, he should play. He could have been active, maybe. I mean, he was off the.
They said he was going to be active like the day before, and then the day of, they're like, no, Dobbins.
He and Ingram were not active. Yeah. Marquise Brown showed some speed, and it's a poor secondary. So Marquise Brown just takes one pass. He reminded us to Devin Duvernay. We'll see if Willie Snead's going to be back. Is Mark Andrews going to be back? Much like James Conner. Back to the summer, James Conner, cancer survivor. Is he going to opt out? No, he didn't. Mark Andrews, type 1 diabetic. Is he going to opt out? No, he didn't. So, I hope that we don't hear about any complications or anything with Mark Andrews. I don't know if we're going to see him. Well, Luke Wilson, welcome back. If Luke Wilson had caught that pass, that game could have went a lot differently. So, yeah, Baltimore's got to win. They're also amidst a COVID outbreak on their team, and it's 2020. The one thing we can count on, Cease, what the heck flex?
Yes, the one thing that we can count on is that ever popular what the heck flex, because you're looking over your lineup and you're just like, oh my God, please, can I have some sort of punch? Can we do something here? What's going on? It's that ever popular what the heck flex, ladies and gentlemen, for week 13. I look over my list, including the running back position, starting there. What the heck flex levels include guys we've talked about before, but Chase Edmonds, Zach Moss, there you go. What the heck flex levels include Devontae Booker, who could be more if Josh Jacobs doesn't play. Again, we're waiting for that. Cam Akers I've got as a what the heck flex, and so is Le'Veon Bell this week. Again, they can do whatever they want basically against Denver. What the heck flex level for the wide receiver position? One of my favorite. Still holding on to him. And Fessel OG, who takes out undefeated Andrew Garda. This guy. Sorry, OG. Alan Lazard is a what the heck flex. Josh Reynolds, what the heck flex for me there as well. I think Brandon Ayuk could be what the heck flex plus more. So there you have it. That is my what the heck flexes for week 13. Bloom, you look over your lineup, you need some punch. Who are some of your week 13 what the heck flexes?
If he's active, Myles Gaskin. Maybe go over right away. Frank Gore. If the Jets can beat the Raiders, don't you just picture it being behind Frank Gore? So there's a chance Frank Gore could be triumphant. We don't accept losing Duke Johnson again in the passing game. Latavius Murray. Devontae Booker, you mentioned, J.D. McKissick, watching having to go pass heavy. Wide receiver, Gabriel Davis, against San Francisco, probably not facing Richard Sherman. Colin Johnson, watch DJ Chark's status there. Colin Johnson against the youth in the Viking secondary. T.Y. Hilton, because it's Texans week. Kiki Cutie, because he's Kiki Cutie, because how many more times will we get to talk about him? Marquise Brown, we talked about. And maybe this is the week that a deep pass to Darnell Mooney actually connects against those Detroit Cats.
Bloom, I love irony. You know that, right? Okay.
Delicious irony. Yeah.
Do you know what's ironic about this picture that I'm showing? The audio audience is just like, why do these guys do this? Do you know what's ironic about this picture? Do you remember what it was for?
Weighed less?
Do you remember what it was for?
For the 5 minute drill?
Yeah, but it was for our interview in Men's Health magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Men's Health.
That we are not a picture of men's health. Mental health, maybe? Or emotional health? I don't know. Self-esteem? Self-image? None of that stuff.
Swagger, right? who was interviewed in Men's Health magazine and is completely unhealthy. Diabetes. Every time I get McDonald's, my kids do that to me. So I'm like, maybe I should listen to my kids.
Yeah.
Maybe we all should, Bloom, right?
Yeah, we should.
The knowledge of the youth, that is for sure. He is Sigmund Bloom. I am Cecil Lammey. Be back with the Thursday night live show tonight. No game. So join us. Join us, part of your 2-screen experience. Maybe you're watching Yellowstone. Maybe you're watching Real Housewives. There you go, Bloom. Whatever. Jump on with us. 10 o'clock Eastern time. It is the Audible Live. So make sure to check that out. Of course, got our DFS Power Grid show coming up tomorrow morning as well, right here on the Audible. Thank you very much for watching. Do all those YouTube things. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Everyone, stay tuned and stay frosty.